So it's that time in the year where you're considering your personal statement for your ARIS application, and I'm often asked, how important is the personal statement? And the bottom line is personal statements certainly aren't the most important part of your application, but they are not unimportant. And my main piece of advice is that the personal statement can be used for primarily two separate objectives. First of all, if you have anything within your ARIS application that you are looking to clarify, the personal statement is your opportunity to do that. However, if that doesn't apply to you, then use it, just as the name would imply, to tell us who you are as a person. We do use these personal statements to identify you not so much as an applicant, but as a person. So tell us about what makes you interesting, makes you different, makes you a great candidate for our program specifically. So what are some of the best personal statements that I've read in the past? There's been a lot of them, and I can certainly tell you that. I've read probably close to 10,000 personal statements over the last dozen years, and really what comes to mind are those that do tell a story, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about medicine. It should somehow tie into why you are pursuing medicine, and more specifically emergency medicine, but it doesn't have to be some poignant story about yourself or a family member, colleague, friend having some calamitous medical event happen in their life. Similarly, there are certainly some pitfalls that I'd encourage you to avoid, and some of these are very concrete. For instance, any personal statement that comes through with typographical or grammatical errors, really sends up some red flags for us. And so this really gets to the point, and I'll speak about this in a little bit, about proofing your personal statement. Other things to avoid are really, a lot of personal statements take the form of describing typical characteristics of emergency physicians and what characteristics that you possess that now make you a great candidate. And those tend to be somewhat formulaic, for lack of a better word. Also, the paradigm that describes exactly what emergency physicians do and why. And my response is often, I know what I do, and I don't necessarily need to be told in a personal statement. I would much rather hear specifically, an activity, a passion that you have that really describes better for me what these characteristics are and how they exist within you. So I do get a lot of students asking me about the length of their personal statement, and I do think that one page is probably the sweet spot. When we get personal statements that only fill up, a third to a half of the page in ARIS, that is atypical and kind of may not leave the best impression. Similarly, most of us are not going to read past a page, and so like I said, one page is that sweet spot without getting over it. And remember that a page, when you draft this in Word or whatever application you're using, it may not transfer exactly over to ARIS at that same length. Another key point is that not all of the characters, when you copy and paste your personal statement, are reproduced in the same way. Sometimes we get odd characters because they just don't translate from Word into ARIS. So be careful to proof it once it's in ARIS as opposed to just in your as a Word document. So getting back to proofing, I really do recommend, and I would imagine most of your schools have programs for the deans or associate deans to review your personal statements, and you certainly want to take advantage of that. However, I would also encourage you, if you have friends from your time in undergrad or colleagues from previous positions and careers that have a background in composition, to have them review it, because this is not a skill set that most medical students or physicians for that matter have, and they can really give you a much better perspective. And when I see a personal statement that has clearly been reviewed and with someone who really knows what they're doing in terms of composition, it really does show through.